Hi, Max. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, very well. How are you?
Doing great. So to start,
Excellent.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but you get to have your tributes from my favorite district, District 4,
District 4, yes.
because I'm a Finnick girl, so I love District 4
Aren't
and
we
want to see
all?
it
Aren't we
so much
all?
more.
I
But
wanted to, honestly, I'd watch a whole District 4 movie. I think that would be fantastic. Like bring Sam Claflin back, do a mini series.
yeah, it's fine. Finnick can be older now. It's cool. We'll just pretend the dogs never got him. But
Yeah.
now I have a question for you though. What was your level of Hunger Games like knowledge and fandom prior to this? Because I do love how everyone in this cast seemingly was a huge Hunger Games fan.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's because so many of us were kind of at that perfect age where the
Mhm.
movies were coming out for the first time and the books were coming out, that we were kind of slap bang in the middle of that kind of era of kids who were reading these and growing up with them. I know I was someone that grew up reading the Hunger Games books. I remember watching the films, and I think for a lot of people, it was the first time that we'd sort of been and watched a film that was geared towards our age group.
Mhm.
Um, that was also like a genuinely really great movie. Like I was raised on a diet of really classic 70s and 80s Hollywood cinema.
Mhm.
And for me, like I've always like really appreciated brilliant filmmaking. And I remember so clearly walking out of Catching Fire when I first watched it, which I know is everyone's favorite. It's my favorite too. Apart from R1, obviously. But I remember walking out of it, and even as like a relatively young kid, I was really, really struck by just what a brilliant movie it was. I think that's what sets the Hunger Games apart. Um, in general, as a franchise, is that our commitment has always been making really, really great films. Um, I think that's probably what drew me to them in the first place, and the story and the characters and everything. I loved it when I was younger for sure. Um, and I was always more of a movies fan than a books fan.
Mhm.
But maybe that's just how I roll.
What I do love about with this movie that we're getting to see a different capital because the capital is
Hmm.
not, the glitz and the glamour that we are kind of used to seeing on screen because it is, closer to the end of the war. So they're still rebuilding things. And you get to spend most of the time or all of the time in the capital. How is it getting to bring
Yeah.
this version of the capital to life?
Oh, it was so exciting. I mean, the capital was always my kind of favorite place in the original films, in the first films, just because I thought it was so just wacky and campy and brilliant, and the production design was beautiful, and so I think having the chance to inhabit that world and actually get to live in it for a bit was so exciting. Um, and especially to put our own spin on it. The Panem in our film is it's a little bit of the old and a little bit of the new.
Mhm.
There's those elements that we know and love about it, and then there's something so exciting about seeing it 64 years before we ever have in the past, and getting to almost be part of a period film was so cool. The costume design, Trish Somerville is like the most insane genius, and I think every single day we stepped onto set was just a new feeling of wow, because so much of what we did was shot practically. The set design,
Mhm.
everything was gorgeous, and I think that was honestly one of the most exciting aspects for me, was getting to see this world that I had imagined in the books brought to life so faithfully and in such a beautiful way.
Yeah, and I also do love that, like you said, the old and the new, and the newer
Mm,
part for me was just Lucky Flickerman. I'm like, yeah, that would be Caesar
yeah.
Flickerman's dad. Like, just
Right.
but I do like those scenes where we get to see, everybody who is now being one of the mentors, because it is
Yeah.
like it's new to them and it's new to the movie as a whole, or like the franchise as a whole, because we only know the mentors as being former victors. When you guys are given that freedom and like being the first time we're seeing what would happen if people from the Capitol had to be mentors, how did you kind of approach like bringing that to life? Because it comes across so quickly and easily with everyone in this cast. It's like, yes, this is what's happening in this
Yeah.
version.
I think that as an actor, it really helps when you're given a brilliant script. And I think that, we had such a fantastic script to go off. We had such strong characters kind of there already for us to approach, and that's thanks to Mike and Suzanne, who you know gave us such a sort of rich background for everyone. For me playing Festus, definitely like there was so much that I could delve into
Mm-hmm.
to really help like build that character. Um, I think that the most useful source for me in creating that character and sort of figuring out like what does a mentor look like for the 10th Hunger Games, were the fans. I would go back and trawl through fan forums and the Hunger Games wiki sites, and I would go back and see these people who live and breathe this franchise are
Mm-hmm.
going to know so much more about it than I am. And so I thought if I can draw as much from the fans and their interpretations of what Suzanne has written as possible, then I'm going to be doing right by them. And I think having so many different sources to draw inspiration from was super helpful, super useful.
Yeah, and I do think it helped build out this movie because I mean, like my concern, and a lot of other Hunger Games fans' concerns was always like, why are we watching something about Snow? Like he's an evil man, we don't need it. But I do like this movie because, excuse my French, but he's a petty bitch, and we get to see that come across in
Yeah,
every kind of aspect of this movie, and it
Snow's a
rules.
fascinating character.
Yeah, but it rules because it's like you see with his classmates how he kind of is and how they react to him because he's straight
Mm.
up lying to them. And then like even at the end we get to see him with his classmates. Being a part of that side of like Snow's story as a fan, what for you was the most exciting part of like being there and knowing like, oh, people are gonna learn about Snow and I'm in it.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me it was just getting to history. I think given that it's a story that people love so much, and I think a lot of people were surprised when they thought, oh, we're going to go back in time. We're not going to see the 50th Hunger Games or whatever. We're going to learn about this one really interesting character, and I think the film is a character study, certainly, and I think that that's something that drew me to it. It's a super it's a super cerebral film in a lot of ways, and it really deals with the ins and outs of a character, and that's the kind of thing that I've always been drawn to. Um, and I think that you know, as far as I'm concerned, it was just really exciting to be able to kind of help flesh that out and to really help us understand, why Panem turns out how it does in those first movies, those first books. Um, for me, it was like I'm laying the groundwork.
Mm-hmm.
What I do actually has a consequence here, and it was really nice to be able to feel as though in some shape or form my character and myself were actually contributing in a
Mm-hmm.
way to kind of to molding this man into the tyrannical megalomaniac that he becomes, that is such a brilliant villain
Yeah.
um in those first films. And I think even for me, kind of seeing how I was a part of that and how I might have contributed to the making of a monster was was really cool. It was just really cool.
I love it. And for the last quick question, I do love
Yeah.
that everyone keeps getting asked this, and you kind of already
Mhm.
sort of said, but if you could, for the next Hunger Games movie that we kind of dive into, what
Mm-hmm.
Hunger Games or story would you want them to do?
I want to see Haymitch's games because, and I know that's going to be everyone's answer. It's going to be everyone's answer. I would say I want to see Haymitch's games because, like, obviously I do.
Mm.
And I don't care if we have a de-aged Woody Harrelson because, like, I love that man and I will watch him. I will watch weird CGI de-aged Woody Harrelson. I'll watch anything with him in it. I'd love to see that, and I'd really love to see a film about Snow the politician. I want to
Mm.
see like a film about his rise to power and the sort of political conniving that takes us through from where we leave off at the end of Songbirds, right the way through to 10 years before we see Katniss's first games. Like that
Hmm.
to me would be really interesting. A thriller, a political intrigue. That'd be a really interesting story to tell.
Yeah. Oh, I would love it. Thank you so much for talking with me, Jay. I really
No,
appreciate
of
it.
course,
Can't wait for people who didn't get to see this in theaters to finally get to see Songbirds and Snakes.
right? Go download it or stream it or anything.
Also, thank you.
Thank you so much.